Hi there, I'm Calvin Leduc, and welcome to the very first interview at the Vancouver Animation School with an industry professional, Nik Ranieri. And Nik is going to show up in a few minutes. I'm just setting up the pages here, guys. Let me show you if you're interested in our intro courses. And our intro courses, because we are an animation school, we do have a 1-month introductory course into 3D character animation. We do have a 1-month introductory course for the 2D computer animation, and that is using Flash, which is now called Animate. For 3D character animation, we use Maya, which is the industry standard for computer animation now, and it's free. There's an introductory course for concept art, and the 1-month course is one live class a week. The classes are an hour long. You tell us if you're interested in having it in the morning or in the evening or at night. All of our instructors are industry professional. We have a great art director that works on video games for the concept art that always does it. Myself, I do the intro courses for 3D computer character animation, video effects. Again, the industry is always approaching us to develop new courses, and we do have a 1-month introductory course for effects animation. It uses Houdini, and most people think that knowing effects in Maya is sufficient to get a job, but the industry really wants you to know Houdini, so that's what you have to do, guys. Digital map painting. The visual effects industry came to us and said, literally, we can't find people that know this skill. We're having to hire them from Europe. And so we became the first online school to teach digital map painting. We went to these studios that requested that we build this course. The professional digital map painters help us build the course, and they actually teach the course as well. So it's a very exciting skill to have, much needed. If you know how to do this, you pretty much can go where the studios are and get a job. It's pretty exciting. 3D modeling. Again, advanced 3D modeling. We want you to know what are the skills required to get a job in the industry. And I've been recording some of the lessons with the modeler that's working, currently I believe it's at Disney Future Animation. So when you're doing the introductory course, you get access to the school site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch the recorded videos anytime you want. You can start them, stop them, restart them. We have an online messaging system where you can contact your instructor and they get back to you any day of the week, which is kind of good. And I'd have to find out exactly if career development is included as a intro course. It's a standalone. Most introductory courses are kind of to give you a taste of what it's like to do it. If you've never done online training, if you've never done animation, right, here's a way for a very small fee to try it out and see, do I like it? Do I like doing animation? Do I like working with software? And then you can go and take our 1-year programs. This is a very specialized course. We do have an introductory course to video game design as well. Most schools, when they offer a course that's called video games, you're not designing a video game. You're learning to model. And this actually is how do you design and build a video game. It's taught by video game designers. I believe both of them are actually local because our school is located here in Vancouver, and there is a 1-month introductory course there as well. You can go and click on any of these if you actually want to go right in and see an explainer video that's very brief, what software you'll need, what hardware you'll need, what you'll be doing during each of the weeks for your assignments. So there's the requirements, there's the software, the equipment. As an online school, you're going to need a computer. You're going to need the internet. You're going to need a webcam. You're going to need headphones with a microphone attached. We have full accreditation, which is great if you require student loans. We've been approved by the, used to be called PICTIA as well. We have the Education Quality Assurance price for introductory course. And, please feel free to type into chat where you're from. I'd like to know. Uh, myself, originally from Canada, back in Ontario, and currently I'm living here in Vancouver. But I've worked in Europe, in England, in Germany, in California, working on features for 15 years.
Hold on.
Hello, Nick. Say something.
All right.
Okay. Everybody can hear you. There's Nick. Can you enable your camera? Good to see you. Check out how many people are joining us.
All right.
Get going. So the first thing, because everybody wrote literally hundreds of questions. I know in the hour we're not going to get through 100 questions, but I picked a lot of the really great ones, and I just want to kind of start it off with getting people up to speed with actually who is Nik Ranieri. So,
All right.
first one I want to start with was can you kind of bring us up to speed on education experience? Where did you go to learn animation?
All right. Well, basically, um, it's this whole journey started in the late 1970s, and I didn't really know much about animation. I wanted to do something in art, right? But I really didn't know what. I thought maybe a cartoonist. I talked to some high school, um, you know, um, guidance counselors, and a lot of them were saying, oh, 1 in 1,000 ever gets to be a cartoonist, and so you know, that's not a great. Um,
Profession.
the odds are against you, basically, and so I thought about, and then I started to think about animation, but to me, animation had always been cartoons, and I like cartoons a lot and love watching them, but I never really thought about what went behind making them. And uh, there was this moment where I was watching this old Popeye cartoon called Popeye and the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And all of a sudden, it was like an epiphany. I was watching it and I started to notice, just sort of realize, all the work that went into this thing. What are like every drawing and all this, and I still didn't quite understand it. At the same time, there was a show over at Sheridan College in Oakville. Well, I'm from Toronto, so that was about a half-hour drive or whatever. So I went over to Sheridan and discovered, when I looked at the displays, oh, I get it. It's cell, and there's ink on one side and paint on the other, and oh, I get it. That's how they do it. And I started to understand it a little better, and decided that that was the direction I wanted to go in. I thought animation, they need, hundreds of people, so the possibility of getting work is not as rare as say
Right.
cartooning, where
So,
you have to build up.
how many years did you have to go to Sheridan?
That was a 3-year program, and I wanted to get in it so bad. And at that time, you had to submit some sort of portfolio to get in, and you had to take a test and all that. My high school art numbers were really bad. I took commercial art in high school, and I got pretty good marks on the art side, but it was the art history
Hmm.
stuff that brought me down, and so my art marks were like low C's, and they're saying, "Oh, we can't uh, put you, we can't bring you into this unless you have at least a B and all that." So we recommend the Art Fundamentals program, and the Art Fundamentals program is basically a whole variety of classes in arts, and you're supposed to take that and decide which one you want. I knew which one I wanted, but they said no, you have to take it because your marks are
Right.
so low. So I
How long
took
was
it,
Art
and
Fundamentals?
it was about
Right.
a year course, and within that course, they had things like photography and printmaking and textiles and all that stuff I couldn't care less about. But you needed to get good marks, and I basically failed 5 courses. And
Not not
I
not the best. Don't
and
tell people stuff like this. Okay.
no, I did. I I got an A+ in animation because that was
Right.
one of the courses that was
Fine.
offered in our fundamentals. I got a B in drawing, a C in design, C
So
plus or
did they
something
let you
like
take
that.
animation full time because you failed?
No, they
Ta-da.
didn't. We had a meeting, and I said, "Look, I really liked animation. I got an A+. I got a B." It's like, "Yeah, but you got a F in
Right.
textiles." It's like, I don't care about textiles. I skipped the class so I can make my own
Right.
film. This is what I produced. And they thought,
Hmm.
"Well, I don't." There's this guy. This guy. What was his name? Oh yeah, Mark Titterson. The name just stuck in my mind. But he's like, "Well, I don't think we should let you in because basically looking at your marks, you probably wouldn't make it in the animation industry anyways." And so, so I was like, okay, fine. So I took a year off. I made a film on my time off, and then I went back and submitted the film, submitted another portfolio. They accepted me into the program the
Right.
following year on
Right.
probation.
So
And so
you
that was,
lost a
yeah,
year because
I
yeah.
lost a year. But you know what? It was providence of God. It was a good year to lose because I found out later after I graduated and got into my first job that the industry was really bad at the time that I would have graduated. And a lot of people were driving cabs and stuff like that, and not a lot was going on in the industry. There wasn't a lot of work. So that amount of time that it took me to
Right.
graduate uh, worked out timing wise. So yeah, it was a good timing wise. It was great. So 3 years at Sheridan. Um, it was a good choice because it really allowed you to learn the craft without putting yourself in financial debt for the rest of your
Right.
life. I
Sheridan's a
remember
community college,
when
and
I
that was a great thing. Just how low the
yeah,
tuition was.
I mean, yeah, we spent more
Supplies.
on supplies than we did on tuition.
So we probably should fill this in, guys, that Nick and I were in the same year, and
Yeah,
we went through Sheridan together.
and we right we I did I mentioned in I'm trying to remember. Did I meet you in first year
Very
or second
briefly,
year?
I
I know we
believe
were
you did most of your
yeah.
work at home. So you came to class and then you left, but the rest of us would stay in the class and do our homework,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I had a setup at home. I had a little light table, and I built it. I got wood and I built the thing, and I got some pegs. And for me, it was easier to do it at home because I could basically
Yeah.
work day and night
And it
on the
was
film.
quieter,
It
yes. You
just
got kicked out of the school at night.
yeah, yeah,
I had a
yeah.
setup my second year in
You
residence.
yeah, you were in residence. Were you in
No,
residence the
I had
first
my
year?
own apartment. But we should also
Okay.
fill in the guys that are listening to us that we worked on a film together. Second year.
Yes, in second year they had one of the big things was a project, a group project, and that was the second semester, right? That was the second semester project. The first semester you had sound. You got to deal with you got to deal with sound and lip sync. I think that
So,
was it.
so let me
Um,
just briefly say this is one of our old instructors, which we had many different instructors, but I always found the old guys knew the most. I mean, right? They had a lifetime
yeah,
in the industry. And this guy was Jim
yeah.
McCully, this great old Scottish animator.
That's right. He worked in England on a lot of the British shows,
They're trained
and
by Dave Hand,
uh,
who was the
yeah,
director of
he worked
Bambi. Okay.
right, and they worked in England on a lot of shorts for British films and things
And
like
this was
that.
an effects great.
Um, yeah,
Dick
Dick
Friesen.
Friesen, right?
It took me years to go, that's a funny name.
Yeah, it's even funnier in the phone book.
So,
Anyway,
so we did a group film. Here's my next picture.
yeah.
Here's the group, guys.
uh, yeah. And the person on the right is Rick Sluter, who was he did some animation in the film, but he was mostly focusing on backgrounds and art
Yep.
direction, and that's where he ended up basically art directing on many films, head of backgrounds on Mulan, and
So yeah, he was
just projects
at
like
Disney
that.
Florida as head of layout first and background, and then became, like you said, art director. And and then he
Yeah.
went to I think it was Blue Sky, and then
Uh-huh.
Leica.
And then he disappeared off the face of the earth. Do you know where Rick is? I have no idea where Rick is. I don't know.
I
And
think
last time,
the moment,
I mean,
the stop
go ahead.
motion place.
Oh, stop motion,
Yeah,
please.
where they do the 3D stop motion, Kudo and his two strings or whatever. Great films like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? At
there it is. That's it.
Leica.
These
Oh,
these photographs
cool.
we did because when we finished the film, there was a competition that requested the filmmakers' photographs, and they had photography at Sheridan. So we had a student photographer take pictures,
Right.
and it was great.
Right.
What did you think of the making of a film? Would you recommend it to a student
What
making
do
a
you
short animated
What do
film?
you mean? Oh yeah, of course. I
Why?
mean, you want to experience all aspects of the production side of it, not just focus
You
on
want
animation, and this helps
a
you to
great filmmaker? You got to
understand.
start making films, right? If you ever want to be a
Yeah.
director, you got you were the director of our film, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a decision. Somebody had to be it, and so they said, yeah. Even though we all sat around and sort of worked out this idea, there was a fourth member, a guy named Chris
Mhm.
Butler, but he opted out early, and left just the three of us to do it. And basically, we worked on that for a full
Yes.
year. It was a total of an entire year, from January to December of was it 83? 83, I
Yeah.
think, because we graduated in
Uh,
84. So that the entire year, and I basically continued working on it through the
mhm.
summer of 83, because you guys, Rick had work, and I don't know what happened to you, but I continued to work on just doing certain animation scenes and getting it done. It was kind of annoying to the summer students because I kept coming in there and taking up camera time
I
and all
remember
that.
going down and
But my
filming, and I
goal,
was working during the summer to make money to go to school. So
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that was just
and
intense amount of work because we also had to paint
yeah,
cells, we had the ink
the whole
cells.
process. What was the end result of us having a finished film?
The end result for us was basically um,
Awards?
we well, I think it was more the confidence to know that we actually could finish something where because a lot
For
of
me,
the
it was
people,
awards.
even in our year, didn't. No, but
Okay, name of the film, Nick.
it
Somebody's asking.
nobody finished
That's true.
anything. I remember in third year, this guy next to us, you remember
Yeah.
Ashley Lenz, and we were sitting there like first week trying to finish Common Problems, okay, trying to finish it, and I'm looking over and he's sitting there enjoying himself. It's like, Ashley, why don't you working? You got just he says, I got plenty of time,
I
plenty
worked
of
with him in
time,
Germany.
and then
Again.
yeah, and then by the end of the year, it's come around March or April. He's like scribbling, trying to finish this thing.
Okay, so
It's
our,
like,
our film was called Common Problems. Okay, guys? Let me write it.
yeah,
Text it.
and and basically, Common Problems was a result of in our year we had to do a student project together, a group project. But the reason what they said is they said we you have only there's only one caveat. You have to do it has to be about
Right.
Canada. And so everyone's like, Canada, oh, man, what are we supposed to do with Canada? I don't know. So we sat around in the commissary and just tried to think of ideas, and we came up with this dopey joke and about the House of Commons and stuff like that. And so we decided, yeah, let's do that. So we had the ending, and so we boarded out the ending and we stuck it in the on the storyboard, and then we had an idea for the beginning with the credits, and so we stuck that up. So it was the first line up at
Mm-hmm.
the top, two lines at the bottom, and then we took a little sheet and wrote gags on it and stuck it in the
Yep.
middle, and that was our
We put as many
story.
gags as we could think
And
into the middle.
as many Canadian
Yep.
references and gags and all this stuff. And then I did designs for all the government
Yep.
leaders and
Caricatures. It was all political satire.
caricatures of Trudeau and
Ed
Joe Clark
Broadbent.
and Ed Broadbent and all these other characters, right?
Pain.
And we just started coming up with silly ideas and jokes like that. Well, we pitched it to the teachers, and the only one that was on our side was
Yeah.
Vivian Ludlow.
We did 10 complete
The I
storyboards, and they didn't like any of them. So we just said, this is the one we
Right.
like the most, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you get the teachers, and Jim was going, well, I like the beginning, but the ending has problems. And then Barry would come around and say, well, I like the ending, but the beginning has problems. And another teacher would come around and say, I like the middle, but the beginning and the ending have problems. So it's like, forget it. You can't
Yeah.
please everyone. So what you got to do is you just got to go ahead and make the
Yeah.
film you want
Yeah.
to make, for good or
Do
for
something you
bad.
love.
The big thing though is, don't bite off more than you can chew. They're always warning against people with these grandiose plans. It's like a starving man, you know, uh, ordering his first meal
Hmm.
in a month. It's like, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want this. And I have these grandiose ideas, and then he starts to eat it, and he starts throwing up because he can't take it. So you got to start
Oh,
small. Be
somebody's asking a
realistic.
question. Is it important to finish?
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, for me, I'm a
That's the
finisher.
answer.
I
When
I
you're in when you're in a
I like.
studio, does anybody go, oh, it's okay if you don't finish your scene?
Yeah,
You gotta.
yeah. I mean, here's a lot of things in school that I remember, that Sheridan, you know, had problems with. One of the things is, like you said, finishing a film is very important. You need to stress that, and they did stress that. But there's other things like first semester and second year, we had to do sound, okay, animating to sound, and then lip sync. Well, the first assignment was animating to sound, and they said we want you to do
Right,
Goofy.
pantomime.
Well, yeah. So we said, okay, but there are some students like, well, I'm not comfortable drawing Goofy. Could I do my own character? And they're going, sure, whatever you want. It's like they should have said, no, you do
Hmm.
Goofy. Because if you go to a studio and they say, here's Goofy, draw him, and you can't draw him, you're going to be fired. So that was one of the mistakes. It's like, what do you mean? You can't go on to Disney. It's like, I'm uncomfortable drawing Pocahontas. Can I draw my own
Okay,
character?
so
No.
everybody brace themselves. Here's a new image. There was another group that finished a film, and we got together because it happened at the same time we were taking this picture. Here's the two groups.
Love this picture.
Okay, the amount of talent that you're seeing here, guys, is really impressive when I think back on it. Uh,
Yeah.
I work with Shane Doyle in England, working for Spielberg, working in Germany. Amazingly talented animator. Howie Parkins,
Yeah.
right? Is that
Yep.
director for TV animation? Reg Budaj.
Yep.
You want to carry on a bit talking about these people?
Storyboards.
Story.
He worked a
Or
lot at
DreamWorks.
uh, yeah, Nick Park.
Feature
He worked there
animator
a
at
lot.
Disney.
Yep. He worked on a couple of the films early on at Beauty and the Beast and stuff. He was on my unit as in Beauty and the Beast and things like that. So he was great, great. Of course, Cal, who went
A
on to
teacher.
be top notch cleanup artists, and
Animator as well.
Neil and Rick,
Yeah.
and yeah. So yeah, it was. In fact, our year had the most successful graduates. I mean, Jim McCulley referred to us as the worst year.
Well, we just didn't listen to them, but we had a lot of talent.
Well, it's not that, but in our year, Steve Williams or Steve
Yeah,
Spaz Williams,
yeah.
most
It's the
people would
legend
know,
in
did a
computer
lot of.
animation, right?
That's right, Harlan Williams, comedian who actually we worked together sort of on the same movie, Meet the
So,
Robinsons, where he did the voice
well,
of
I didn't
Carl.
realize that at all.
So yeah, yeah, and it was never actually met him while he was there, but it was interesting to work on a
So
film with
let's
him
not spend
again.
a
And
long time,
I
but
mean,
what was your
yeah.
professional work career? Briefly, really briefly, maybe just titles.
Well, 25 years at
Ta-da.
Disney. Um,
But what was your first
took
animation job? It wasn't at Disney.
No, my first animation job was on the Raccoons in
Was it
Ottawa,
a TV
Canada. It
series?
was a TV series, The Raccoons. I only worked on 7 of the episodes, and then we went on to, well, that's Roger Rabbit. But um, uh, when worked in Ottawa, then moved to Montreal and worked on commercials there. Moved back to Toronto, worked on commercials at Lightbox. Montreal, it was Pascal Blay Studios, Lightbox Studios in Toronto, and then I had a falling out at Lightbox and basically was out of work. Um, so I met up with Cal, and we were like, he was out of work. I was out of work.
I
It's
just
like,
finished working in the States,
thank.
and I was continue.
Oh, go ahead.
Well,
I'm just.
then you'd called me up and said, "What are you doing?" And I'd already planned a trip
Yeah,
to go to,
England.
well, in Ireland as well. So interview with Don Bluth's
Yeah,
studio, and I wanted to get a job on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So you continue.
right. So we both heard about this. So we talked about it, and thankfully, I was able to. I saved up a lot of money. I didn't do much in Ottawa. um, whereas everybody else was like spending like nobody's business. I basically saved all my money, so I was able to take that and spend it on travel. So Cal and I said, well, we'll share expenses. We'll start over. We'll go over to Ireland, and we'll check out the scene there at Bluth. Then we'll travel over to UK and check out Soho, where a lot of the studios were. And our ultimate goal was Roger Rabbit. We really wanted to work on Roger. My goal was, oh, they're going to have the Warner's characters in there. I want to work on the Warner's characters because that was even though I said Popeye, once I learned about animation, I really, the
Right,
Warner
the 40s.
characters, and yeah, and that's just amazing. And Chuck Jones is still my favorite animation director. Um, so basically, we shared expenses. We went over to Ireland, went into Blue. First day we got there, we found some bed and breakfast or something just down the street from the Blue Studios. Got in there, walked over to the Blue Studios, walked in with our reels and stuff, and said, "Look, we'd like to see somebody about a job." And we came all the way from Canada, and oh, okay, well, here, put this in and come back tomorrow. Uh, you
Right.
know, put in this, yeah. So we said, okay, that's fair, right? So we leave, see some of the sights, watch a 3-year-old movie or something like that. Then we come back the next day and they say, well, nobody can see you, so why don't you leave your reel here? And then it's like, well, we're going to be leaving for England, so we'll leave it here, and then when you come back to take your flight back home, pick it up. So it's like, this is in the days when all you had was
Yeah.
one copy.
Yeah.
That's it
Very
to
expensive.
show. You didn't have yeah, and I had one PAL copy of my reel, and that was it. So I wasn't going to leave them with them. So I said, look, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take this, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go to England, and that's it. So we went to England, we visited different studios, and then we ended up at Dick Williams' studio because that's where I thought they were doing it, because Dick Williams was director on Roger Rabbit. But it was his commercial studio that we ended up, and they said, "Oh, you want Disney? It's in Camden Town." So we went there. We went to Camden Town. we had interviews. Now, Cal, you were pretty much set. You got a job instantly because you were grandfathered in. You had
Well,
a
I
you
had to
know,
do a
work.
test that got approved by the producer on.
Right. But as far as working in
Right,
Britain
right. I
goes,
had a
you were
visa,
able
my own visa
to
to
work
get in.
there.
Yes.
Right, because your grandfather was from there, right? Yeah. So yeah, but me, I didn't. They said we can't hire you because we looked at your reel and we didn't like what we saw, and so the best we could offer you was an assistant, in betweener, and we're not willing to pay for a visa for in betweeners. Thankfully, my dad, who is first generation Italian, got my brother and I European passports. So I was EC. So I said, "Well, I have an Italian passport. Does that work?" And he goes, "Welcome aboard."
So we
And
both got jobs at
the
Disney. Right.
yeah, the exuberance of that was because they were looking
Yes.
for
Desperate.
people. Well, Roger Rabbit,
So
desperate.
that,
That they were putting ads in papers.
this is an image of the famous James Baxter, and look his name up, guys, if you don't know who he is. He was started as our in-betweener, okay? Because he
Yeah,
came out of 1 year of college. Uh,
yeah.
Again, it was what was that college? Was it Cambridge? It was.
I don't know. Basically, James was a
Oh yeah.
natural. There are
At the end of the
naturals out
picture,
there.
he
People
was
who
animating on the main characters, the starring
yeah,
characters. Roger Rabbit.
yes. Yeah. He started yeah, as an in-betweener and basically people would give him little scenes to do and he'd excel at them and yeah, he was producing a lot of a really high quality. In fact, the last shot of Roger and Jessica walking away from the camera, that was his, and a lot of others
So
too.
there was
Amazing.
some nice perks. Uh, it's a co-production with Spielberg, so he came and visited. Got our pictures
Yes,
taken with him.
yes, and that picture is great because if you go back right behind me, behind the partition there is the door, and that's the entrance to the studio. To get into the main studio, that's how you come in. And my desk was right where Spielberg is standing in front of. So nobody could get in and out without me knowing about it. When someone come in, I would look up to see who was there and what famous celebrity was coming by. I mean, um, what's his name? Uh, who's the guy that Batman Begins? Played Batman. What's his name? Uh,
You got me. I'll look it up. But I just got to click through here
okay.
quickly. We've already burnt up
Okay.
45 minutes. Here's
Yeah. Christian Bale. Thank you. Yes, Christian Bale came by the studio as a kid. They were working on Empire of the Sun, and Spielberg was taking him through the studio to show. And I mean, everybody came
true.
by that studio. It was
This is
amazing. Jim Henson.
this is Andrea
Yeah.
Stasia, who was brought over from the California Disney unit. Uh, and he's one of the best, and he's from Germany, but he's one of the best animators in the world. Over here,
Yeah.
Jacques Mueller,
Yeah. He
a
is.
great gentleman from France, his assistant from Australia. Are you getting a sense of how global animation is, guys? Of the best company anyway.
Well, at this time, anyway.
Uh, that's our
Uh,
producer, young Don
Don
Hahn.
Hahn.
Here's a great group shot. Starting from left, you
This
want to
is a
say who they
shot.
are, Nick? You?
Okay, well, it's me. It's Robert Watts. That's Bob Hoskins. Robert Watts is producer, right?
Bob Hoskins,
Or
the actor,
executive
the
producer.
star actor.
Bob Hoskins. Robert
He directed the
Zemeckis.
live action.
Uh, yeah, Frank Marshall. There's so many producers and executive producers. I
Comes
can't
from
remember
Amblin,
exactly
right?
what.
He's lifetime
Yeah,
team with Spielberg.
he's also he's also a director,
True.
but he
Later.
was it was a who's who of people, all the way to effects and all that. Just amazing. Ken Ralston,
Okay.
Steve Starkey, and Arthur Schmidt, and all these people, tops in their field working on this thing. It was an amazing
This is the
film
Canadian animator
because
in the
it was
foreground.
just.
Joe,
Oh yeah, there's Joe Hadar. That's
who's in
Elaine.
college ahead of
Uh,
us. Yeah.
David Byers Brown in the background there, who basically got me animating because he went to went to Dick Williams and got me promoted,
I don't
basically.
know if everybody recognizes
And
this guy on the left. You want to
yeah, this is Jim Henson,
from where?
and
Some people today go, who?
Kermit the Frog is the Muppets. He
The
created the
Muppets.
Muppets.
And Kermit was
It
his
was great.
character.
Yeah, that's why it's so funny. I
He's
feel like a
hiding in the
Muppet
background.
right there because
Our
his hand
assistant.
is right there. It's like he's more. But he was such a nice guy, and he came by to take a look at the dailies. This is where we watch
Hmm.
dailies,
We would have been on the weekend
and
for him to sneak in, right?
yeah, yeah, a lot of people came in, and I tried. I got pictures of everybody I could, who came in, and so that's why in this area, most of the photos have me in them when it has celebrities in them because I was just I don't know, just wanted to.
So the end result, guys, is, you prove yourself, and we did massive amounts of overtime for what? Maybe the last 6 months, I want to say. Maybe it was a little less, but it felt like
Yes,
6 months.
I mean
Working 6 and
you gotta
7 days a week.
understand. We had a screening in October. In fact, it was around Halloween. It was one of the worst days of British. It was the next morning after a huge hurricane hit London, and we were supposed to have a screening. So we all got on the bus early in the morning, and we drove to I don't know, it was a screening room near Piccadilly Circus, I think it was, and we watched the movie. And uh, I asked Zemeckis afterwards, how'd you feel about the whole, the response from the audience? And he said, it's terrible, terrible. No one laughed, no one responded. And I said, Bob, you got to understand, and this happened to me too. We had like 6 months of production
Ah,
time
yeah.
left, and nothing was done. And we watched this entire movie with no animation in it, maybe a couple of shots, but that was about it. And all I kept thinking, how are we going to get this thing done? I think everybody was thinking the same thing. How are we going to get it done? Well, we did. And the reason we did is because it was 7 days a week, 12-hour days. We practically lived at
Yeah.
the studio, just
The
working and
the end
working and
result
working
of
on
all
this.
the hard work and the great animation that you did, and other people, was that Disney picked up a bunch of the best talent, right? And so this is Burbank, California, where that was your
Yeah,
next job.
yeah. And there's
The,
my
the
Oscar.
film
Just kidding.
the film won
This
a
is
couple Academy Awards, right?
these are the two Oscars that Dick Williams won for. I guess it's directing an animation and a special Oscar for. I'm not even sure what the categories were, but he won two of them.
Hmm.
So it was pretty amazing. It was an amazing day, and so we all got down there. A bunch of us started there. James Baxter and I
James,
sort of went in together and got our jobs at the same time. And
this
yeah,
is Tom Cito,
Tom
who
Cito.
is a feature animator. Now he's a professor of animation, but I think he was president of the animation union for more than a decade, right? It was great
Yeah,
run.
yeah, and he's also a very very good story guy and all that. Andreas, of course, yeah,
Miller,
Jock, um,
Steve Hickner.
Steve. Yep, he was on Roger
He
Rabbit
served
as
as
well.
management, but he
But a lot of
became a
these
producer
guys
much later for other features.
and director. I think he
And
was one of the
director,
directors
correct.
on Prince of
Or
Egypt.
yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so there's a bunch of people that, and of course, here this is one of the perks of working at the Disney Studios in Los Angeles was that we
The
got
two
to
of them.
meet a lot of
Yeah.
our heroes. There, Frank and Ollie were
He wrote
there.
The Illusion of
They came
Life.
by. Mark Davis,
This is Glenn
yeah,
Keane.
Mark Dave, Charles Solomon, who's animation author and writer. Um, and this, of course, is working on the Rescuers Down Under. Um, Initially, this picture happened because I pretty much begged Tom Schumacher to get us to visit one of the last recording sessions and get a photo with John Candy as part of the crew. And the reason is I went over and visited Pat Carroll, who was the voice of
Hmm.
Ursula, after Mermaid was done, and I gave her showed her a picture of our crew photo, and I said, you know, it's missing from this photo. You should have been in it. And she says, I would have loved to have been a part of it, but no one ever asked me. So from that moment on, I asked every voice talent if they'd be a part and come by and be a part of the
Yeah, it,
crew photo. So that's why I got a whole bunch of crew photos with the
yeah, it's
actors
just so
involved.
amazing to see all these guys from so long ago. And John
I
Candy
know,
was a
I know.
Canadian, right? I believe.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, he what a gentleman he was. He was great, and a very kind of sad story with John. Basically, he he was stuck in a situation where if he lost weight, he would lose jobs.
Hmm.
Because he was known as the fat
Right.
funny guy, and so it's kind of sad actually, and I felt for him,
When when I finished
but
working
amazing talent.
in Europe, because I was there for a handful of years, this is me when I came to California to work for Dale Bear, who did Toontown. And these guys got together
Right,
for
right,
kind of a mini reunion of Roger Rabbit crew. You want to identify the guy on the left?
yeah. That's Alex Williams. That's Dick Williams' son.
Animator.
Of course, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, now he's an animator, and actually,
I think he
yeah, he
runs
was an animator on
yeah,
Roger
yeah.
Rabbit too. Yeah, and
So
then Joe, and there's his daughter Hannah, who's like almost 30 now. Dave Nethery.
who's Dave?
uh, Dave Nethery is we work with I work with him. We work with him in Ottawa on raccoons, and he left halfway through that to come to California and work
On Bluth.
on
Yeah.
American Tail at Bluth.
I
And
believe he was your head of
there's just
cleanup for a long time too, right? For your characters.
he actually no, I mean
Miko.
I think he was not for a long time though, but that was one
Okay.
picture.
Wow.
Dave was a head of cleanup, and then after Miko, did he go down to
He did.
Florida at
He
that
did.
point? After
They paid for his entire trip
Pocahontas,
to send his family to Florida, and
yeah, amazing that guy. It's like
there's James
uh,
now on the far right.
you you
James
you
Baxter.
you have to understand that one of the great things about being at Disney is that you're working with people who are tops in their field, and it basically inspires you to up your game. And that was it's a healthy competition, but it's also very helpful in your own personal development.
Good
Um,
tip.
this is why I think this is why a lot of us wanted to work for Disney. You work on quality projects, but you work and you learn from a whole bunch of people, um, and you learn to also let people do what they're good at. I mean, I actually on Roger Rabbit I started doing my own cleanup, and I was really slow, and I did my first two scenes, which were eventually cut, and they said, you know what, you need help, and I was reluctant. I was reticent at first to give up that control, but they said work with
Hmm.
Cal and get him to do your cleanup, and that was the best decision I ever made because it allowed me to go faster. And since Cal knew animation, since you knew
Hmm.
animation, you were able to make sure that the
Worked.
stuff wasn't just pretty drawings, but actually worked in tandem, and you're able to make sure that the in-betweeners were doing what they were supposed
So,
to do. And that's what Dave did as
so
well.
true.
Um,
Dave is a great animator as well. We're down to 6 minutes, and we have
yeah.
hundreds of questions. Let's start getting into questions.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, here's a
Well,
great
it's going to
question.
take long.
What software makes
Okay.
good animation? As it is
Software.
important what software you use.
Okay. Um, it's what you're comfortable with. The software that I was introduced to in Canada a few years ago was TV
Hmm.
Paint, and I started to work on that, and I found it very, very good. There was a lot of good things about it, and I was like a TV Paint person. Then I started to work at a place where they were using Harmony, and I found it very frustrating until I got to understand it, and it's like, okay, I think I can work in this as well. So there's pros and cons to every version. Whatever you learn your shortcuts, and you learn your things that help
Right.
you.
Just a
reach
different
your
tool.
goal. And
Learn to get used
yeah,
to it.
so I mean, there are certain things in TV Paint that I wish were in Harmony, and there's certain things in Harmony I wish were in TV Paint.
Do you
And
think it's necessary
but
to go to school to learn how to animate? Or can everybody just sit
um,
at home and look at online instructions, on
yeah, here,
Facebook?
like I said, I think the basic thing is that, like our experience at Disney, getting to go to a place where there's a whole bunch of people who are striving for the same
Hmm.
goal. You get to interact with people, and you get ideas, and you work with people, and you make
Yeah,
connections,
networking.
um, and and that's important. No man is an island, right? You
You're going to be working with a big
isolate
crew when
yourself.
you're at a studio, no matter whether you're making commercials or pictures, right?
Now, yeah, but no, that's not to say there's people that don't have the ability to get into a school. I mean, I've gotten I've gotten like emails through my Facebook account, on Messenger, where people would write me and say, "Can you mentor me?" and all this. I'm from Nigeria, or I'm from Pakistan, or it's like it's impossible. I can't do that. It's just the distance, the language barrier, the time. It's just like you can't. But they really want to be an animator, but there's nothing
Hmm.
around them. So I feel for these people, but
Well, I would recommend an online
sometimes,
school. There's my plug. Okay,
yeah,
guys.
and
Next
and
question.
sometimes,
How do you
okay.
learn to draw a character?
How do you learn to draw a
Yeah, when they
character?
give you a brand new character,
Um,
maybe that you haven't created, how do you learn to draw that character?
um, what I do is I take the model sheet that they give me, and I just basically put it down, because I've always had problems with
Hmm.
proportion, and so you want to get comfortable with it. So I tend to put it down and draw over it, put a piece of paper, a light table, whatever,
Yeah,
different
that's
layer if you're
great
working
first
on
thing to do.
Cintiq or whatever, and you just start practicing it. Try to adapt the model sheet into different poses and
Okay,
expressions.
here, next
You
question.
know,
And I got this question dozens of times.
uh-huh. How much do you
Now,
make?
how how do you get a job at Disney? You know,
How do you get a job at Disney? There's no one answer
is
for
that going to be
that,
their first job
because
when they get out of school?
probably not. Unless you're like a superstar. I've been on the board,
Hmm. Hiring. Yeah.
portfolio review, yeah, and we would look at people's portfolio, and it's a pretty amazing. Sometimes you go, "Wow, this guy's really good. We should bring him in."
Hmm.
So a lot of people look at what you produce. So if you're like a superstar and your stuff shines, then yeah, you could probably get a job at Disney first off. But you have to be super talented. You have to, like, make people go, "Wow, this guy has potential. We should bring him in." And even then, you probably won't. They probably won't,
Oh,
like, here's 200,000 a year, and your own office. That's not going to happen. They're going to try you out first. They're going to start you off,
here's a
and
great question.
see how you
Yeah.
work in the system.
Does any school guarantee that you're going to get a job with Disney? Can they guarantee? Come to our school, and your first job out is going to be at Disney.
Nobody can guarantee anything like that, because schools and even Disney itself changes. I mean, what you needed to get into Disney in the '70s is different from the '80s, from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
'90s, from
I mean,
today. It's
they
just the
didn't
way
let
it
us
works.
pitch ideas about
It's
superheroes when I worked there for a decade. And today they own Marvel. And look,
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like Joe, right? He kept saying, we should work our fight scenes around Jackie Chan, and now, they're, they're what he suggested was what they do. They work out intricate fight scenes and things like that, and but back then, and
I mean,
it hit
I
that
mean, just
time. The time wasn't right.
Take a look at the credits of movies, because someone's asking, what are the other companies besides Disney? Watch the credits. Find out who made movies. That's very important. If you're going to work for a company, you got to know their history. Is it,
Yeah.
is it Sony? Is it Industrial Light and Magic? Is it DreamWorks? Is it Pixar?
Right.
Blue Sky. There's
Yeah.
feature films being made in Europe. That's where we started. You don't have to just work in Southern California.
That's true. That's true. I mean, and when we were at Roger Rabbit, like you said, it was international. There were
Yeah.
people from
Yeah.
Europe, from Canada, the States, and all that.
France,
Eh,
Italy,
you
Germany,
go where
England,
you go where the
yeah,
work is.
Asia.
Um, I mean, my goal was to work for Disney for the rest of my life and then retire. That's what I wanted to do. Things didn't work
Well,
out that way,
that's a rarity
and
for anyone in almost any profession today, right? Um,
yeah, today especially. I mean, I'm very thankful for the career that I had because it was just the right time. Um, uh, I got in at just the right time. We were still doing the traditional animation and all that, and I feel sorry for the a lot of the people nowadays who really want to do traditional animation. There's not a lot of places that do it, except for there's
some,
television and things
there's
like
some.
that. But feature animation, very rare now. I hope it changes because I think it's a art form in itself, and I just hope it doesn't take too long to come back in a strong way because
Right.
there may not be a lot of people around that know how to do it well if it takes too long. So I'm
Last
hoping
question
that
before we wrap it up, Nick. What do you
okay.
do for your pre-production before you're sitting there and animating on paper? Right? You've got the storyboard. They told you this is your shot, and you've got maybe the audio, or and you know what comes
Uh-huh.
before, what comes after. What do you do?
What do you do? Well, basically
What's your method?
you well I sit back and I just sort of listen and I try to imagine what I would what I would do. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, do thumbnails," and I started doing thumbnails, but I found thumbnails were, for the most part, deceptive. It, because thumbnails, you're drawing just basic little concepts and little ideas, um, but you're not sure of how they relate to each other. The element of time is not involved in thumbnails either. It's just basically concepts and ideas. And I did thumbnails once or twice on a film, but for the most part, I could say that my thumbnails consisted were full size and drawn on separate sheets of paper. And basically, I would work out this stuff and shoot a scribble test, very rough, just for me, just to see how the ideas I have fit into the time that's allotted. And so that was my concept. And but basically, that came from two situations. One, if I started to just animate and not work out my ideas and just go as I just go along as I did, um, then it might not be right, and the directors could not approve it. So what I wanted to do is get something fast down on paper, something that they could see in real time, watch, and say, yes, that's the direction I want you to go in. So the use of thumbnails, full size on a piece of paper, allowed me to see did I have too many ideas in the time allotted? Did I not have enough? Did the idea work within the time that allotted? Did I need more time? And all these things. Time is very important, and how it matches up. Did an action, was I able to complete that action believably over top of the dialogue that was given? Things like that. So that was one thing thumbnails, just little thumbnails on paper, didn't give me. So my process was basically working out all this stuff in a scribble test, and that served both purposes, which was approval from the director and getting it solidified in my own mind where I wanted to go with the scene.
Okay, thank you very much. So,
Yeah.
uh, I want to thank you, Nick, for your time, and I want to thank everybody that took time out of their weekend to join us. And, if you're here in Vancouver, drop by the school. Okay. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, and thanks a lot for your attention.
Ciao, guys.
Are we off?
Yes, we are. Okay. Take care, Nick.
All right. Okay, Cal. Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.